My name is Michael Anthony Cohen. I graduated from the University of South Florida with a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering back in August of 2014. This video is going to be an introduction to my background, and towards the end of the video, I'll explain what this vlog or Vidtorial series is going to be about. You hear a lot about kids these days in grade school getting all these opportunities for groups involving STEM and robotics, and I never had those opportunities. And if I did, I'm not even sure that if I would have actually taken them at the time because my main focus was studio art. I ended up getting into USF as a studio art major back in 2008. And my initial lifelong goal was to become an art teacher and on the weekends make a little bit of extra money by being a tattoo artist. But despite working on drawing and painting, digital design, and photography, I had all the skills but no motivation or drive to actually accomplish those goals to be my career. So in 2010, I had personal issues along with no motivation nor drive to get me towards these career goals, and my grades started to suffer for it. I ended up deciding that I was going to end up dropping out, and so I got a full-time job over that summer and worked in retail for just about 3 months and told myself, yeah, no, dropping out is not an option. I decided that I need to kind of find some new hobbies. I ended up getting into a weird niche of electronic music production called chiptunes, and even further, a sub-niche called chip bending. In this genre of music, the artists will actually apply music theory using electronics, which I thought was very interesting because it's something so different. It felt new. I have no musical background, I'll be honest. I never studied music theory until I started doing this hobby. And so I was learning pretty much two hobbies at once. And I found that the main drive I had was behind the electronics portion of it. I appreciate music greatly, but I always knew my limitations as a musician. I ended up modifying a Game Boy, and I changed out one of the crystals to a lower frequency crystal to detune a whole octave and get lower bass frequencies on a Game Boy. That was really cool for me because that was like probably the greatest accomplishment I had with no, prior electrical knowledge or anything. And it was so simple because all the information was there and it was kind of scattered because I didn't know how to solder, I didn't know how to desolder especially. And I still didn't end up ruining anything, which was the coolest part. I even ended up putting LED lighting inside and made the whole thing glow because it was transparent. I realized then that engineering is really what my calling was. I was still kind of contemplating which engineering I wanted to focus on because engineering has so many different fields. And I thought, well, what other options do I have in the engineering field? Maybe there's even something even more interesting than this. So I got into researching different fields of engineering and what I could actually do with a career for it. I ended up getting really intrigued by robotics. You see it all the time. You see people talking about it, showing little videos of what they've done here and there. I thought, well, that's actually 3 engineering categories all in one. You've got mechanical, electrical, and programming, or computer science, all into one applied process. I thought, well, what has to be the hardest one? You see the industrial automation with an entire arm, and you see that thing and you go, wow, that looks complicated. And so because I saw that, I said, well, it looks like the majority of it must be mechanical. So I thought, I'll become a mechanical engineering major. Of course, it's not that simple, and a lot of it's actually electrical and programming. In fact, the most expensive aspect of robotics is the programming portion of it. And I think that's actually one of the things that people don't really know. I got accepted into the mechanical engineering program at USF in spring of 2011. The only part that I did not like was that my GPA transferred over from when I was a studio art major. And I started out with a 2.6 something overall GPA. Now, the good news is that my major's GPA for mechanical engineering started out as 4.0. What I did was I studied. I did homework. I would find groups of people who had similar interests to me, who had the same drive, the same passion for engineering. I ended up making good friends and group mates with the students that I would work with. We would actually go to the tutoring center And that was just in case we were stumped on a couple of questions that the professor might not have explained well enough. At some point, I started to grasp the concepts a little bit better and better to where it all started to come together. It all started to make sense. I would find more and more often people would start asking me questions, even outside of our group, our study group in the tutoring center. And at some point, I would start answering the questions before the tutors could even get around to us, and I would write them on the board. And even one of the tutors asked, "Do you work here? Because you should if you don't, and we're in need of tutors." And that is where I thought, that's a lot of pressure. So instead of taking that offer, I questioned it because I didn't have the confidence enough. I had only started taking these classes for only about a year now. I was like, there's no way I could become a tutor. I used to be an art major, you know? I mean, I had A's and B's in high school for these subjects. I never had the confidence enough to where I could feel like I could tutor someone else and give them the knowledge that I have, and then hopefully they succeed with it, you know? There's a lot of pressure there. It's like making a recommendation for someone at work. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's riding on it, and I didn't feel confident enough. That's really the main issue. I ended up going into tutoring after a year of putting it off. I applied. I had a 2.85 overall GPA, despite that I had A's and B's, because I had taken so many credits as an art major. And that was another reason why I felt so down, because my overall GPA was much lower than my classmates, despite that my major's GPA was much higher. And the thing is that my school at the time didn't offer the online viewing of your major's GPA, only your overall GPA. So I felt as though I wasn't good enough. But when they implemented that new feature where you could see your major's GPA, I think that was actually the turning point in which I had the confidence enough to say, hey, I actually am an A student. And so I got into tutoring at the STEM Center at USF, and I had helped people for just under a year. It was my last year, and I was looking into going into a internship or getting a permanent engineering job in my field, because I was graduating summer of 2014. So that's where my background for tutoring comes from, and why I want to start this vlog series or Vidtorial series, because I want to explain in depth to the level of detail that I feel like isn't really available out there right now for all the different softwares and different topics of robotics and 3D printing, that some people aren't going into enough detail to actually teach them. It's okay to tell someone all of the how, because at some point they're going to have to learn the why. Going forward, I would like to talk about various softwares such as SolidWorks, Siemens Solid Edge, Siemens NX, CATIA, Creo, aka Pro E, ANSYS, and possibly AutoCAD. Now, additional to all of those, I would also like to get into a bit of mechatronics or mechanical electronics and a little bit of programming. So in turn, we can talk about robotics. So I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Well, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe and let me know what you think in the comment section. And I hope to see you guys soon.
I got the